I ordered myself on the dark web. I know you're frowning. The title is weird, I know. But if you could just give me a moment, I'll explain. I'll have to be fast, though I don't know how close they are. Essentially, I ordered myself on the dark web. I'm a drug user, I'll admit it. Weed is my usual go-to, but I buy that from my friend. If, however, I want to get something a little heavier, like acid or coke, I just order it off the dark web. It's surprisingly simple. A few clicks, some Bitcoin transfers, and then boom, I have acid in my P.O. box. But I'm also a curious guy. The dark web has always intrigued me. Up until a few days ago, I had only been on there to buy drugs off-site some of my friends gave me. But late one night, I was sober and at home, which was a rare thing for me. So since I was bored, I decided to boot up my browser and try and see what sort of fucked up shit I could find on the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web, you'll know that you can't just search up red rooms or Hitman for hire and get results. No, you have to find links to these websites first. So I hopped back onto Google again to try and find some links to a messed up website. I know it's weird that I was actively searching for the worst, but as soon as I got on the dark web that night, a sense of morbid curiosity overcame me. Anyway, I spent a little while trying to find some links. Anything that I found, though, was either too tame for me or the links didn't work. At this point, I was about ready to give up, and I wish I had. But in one final attempt, I clicked on Reddit. Hoping onto our deep web, I didn't think I would find anything. So I just scrolled through hot for about half an hour before sorting by new. Then I found it. One simple text post titled Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services in the text box in the post was what seemed to be just a random assortment of numbers and letters I3D Chi copy QY3. For those of you curious, it took my tired brain a second to figure out what it was, but I realized it pretty quickly. It was a link, presumably to a Hitman website. So, I decided to paste the link into my dark web browser. And what do you know? It worked. But before I decided to go any further, I figured I should go back to the Ops profile to see if they had posted any other dark web links. However, when I went back to the post in question, Ops profile was deleted. Weird. Anyway, I reopened my dark web tab and hopped onto the site. Up along the top of the website was its name, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services, and next to it, what looked to be a skull inside of a crosshair. I chuckled when I saw that the site must be fake. Upon scrolling down, however, I was not disappointed. There was a paragraph of white text on a black background, and a small box to the right of the text that just said place an order. The text was the main part, though, as it took up most of the page. It read, Slayer's Assassinations and Life-Robbing Services offer everything from acid attack, cripple slayer ending, castration, torture, rape, beatings, and good old death. We have the lowest prices out of any other company running similar services, and we are worldwide. We have a dedicated and experienced group of staff based all over the world. So worldwide needs someone to be assassinated, or maybe you just want them scarred for life. Don't hesitate to contact us. Again, I laughed. This had to be satire, right? Hell, I was even tempted to order it for someone just to see what would happen. Ironically, I actually have a half-decent job, so I can afford to. Better not to risk it, though, I thought to myself. I was about to close my computer and call it for a night when I heard a knock at the door. I live alone, so it was unusual to get visitors, especially so late at night. But when I opened my door, it was just my good buddy Mark, who also happened to be my weed plug. As I opened the door, he didn't hesitate to let himself in and shove a big bag full of pot in my face. This dude is the best shit I've had. In a minute, we gotta try some. I couldn't say no. Cut to a couple hours later, it's early morning, and Mark and I are chilling on my couch, both blazed as fuck. He suddenly decides to get up, and I assume he's going to get some leftover pizza, but he walks over to my desk and computer. Slayer's Assassinations. Are you going to kill someone or something? He mutters. What I reply? Your computer, dude. It's got some hacker shit on it. It's the dark web, man, don't fuck with it. At this point, I was still on my couch, half asleep, and not paying full attention. However, I sat up pretty fast when he said, hey man, let's order a hitman on you. I got up and walked over to my PC. Part of my brain was screaming, "What the fuck are you doing?" But the majority of my brain, which was also the high part, was thinking about how funny it would be to order a hitman on myself. So I agree. I did make him get out of my chair though, because I didn't want him to see what my credit card numbers were as I transferred some Bitcoin. In the end, after I wrote down all my personal details, like my address, age, and even a photo, I had to select what I wanted to happen to me. I just selected plain old assassination, as it was actually cheaper than some of the other things. I could have paid an extra couple of grand to be beaten before my death, but even my high brain didn't want to splash the cash too much on my own death. God, this is ridiculous. Anyway, I placed the order and then replied to a confirmation email, and boom, it was done. A couple of clicks and I had ordered myself on the dark web. Mark and I laughed about it for a while, but then he left about an hour later, and I fell asleep not too long after. I woke up around 9 a.m., which meant I got at least 6 hours of sleep, even if it felt like I got 3. I got up and out of bed, threw on some track pants and a cotton shirt. Yes, I sleep naked, and brewed myself a coffee before sitting down to play some games and just enjoying my Sunday. You can imagine how shocked I was when I saw that I had ordered my death the previous night. Even though I thought the site was bullshit, I still felt a pit open up in my stomach. Even when I'm high, I can usually make sensible decisions. I chuckled, not like I could remember it anyway, but I guess Mark's new shit really was good. I would assume a normal human being would do something else, but I was still kind of out of it from the night before, so I just carried on with my day. I was a little more paranoid, sure, but as I said, I just assumed it was bullshit. I even laughed at the email I got from the website, saying that their hitman had been dispatched and was on its way. It was like ordering a package from Amazon. I was tempted to email back and ask for same-day delivery. But I didn't need to ask, because that's exactly what I got. I didn't see it arrive, but around the time I started to cook myself a shitty dinner, I noticed a blacked-out sedan parked on the other side of the road from my house. I didn't live in a rural area, but there are a lot of trees and bushes between each of the houses on my street, so I would be surprised if any other house saw the car, except for mine. At this point, I was freaking out. What if the site was real? Even though I'm a big guy, I was freaking out. I don't own any weapons, aside from a slightly larger than average kitchen knife. Fuck it, I'm confronting it, I decided. I put on a hoodie and slid the knife into the front pocket before waltzing out of my house and walking right up to the driver's side window of the vehicle. Even I was astonished at my own courage. Knocking on the window, nothing happened. It was rather anticlimactic. I was fully prepared to have to fight for my life, all because I did something really dumb while I was baking. But like I said, nothing happened. I even put my head right up to the window, as if there were a reflection, to try and get a better look at what was inside. I could barely see what was inside the car, but all I could make out were 2 empty seats. No one was even inside. I had gotten all hyped up for nothing. I decided to wait out by the car for a bit, but after half an hour or so, I was hungry, and I had to go back inside to take my dinner out of the oven. I swear, it was only a minute between me going inside to take my dinner out of the oven and looking back out of the window, and the car was gone. I didn't even hear it go. I guess I'm eating my dinner with all my curtains closed and doors locked, I muttered to myself. I had just started to calm down when the power shut off. It was sunny outside, and coupled with the car, I now knew that this was the real deal. I had signed my own death warrant. I ran into my upstairs bedroom, locked the door, and then hid under the bed. I couldn't tell all the cops what would I say. Oh yes, sir. It turns out that while super high, I paid $5,000 for some anonymous hitman to kill me, and now he's arrived. Send an officer ASAP, and thank you. So I just stayed hiding under my bed, and I still am now. I've been here for an hour now, writing this. Think of this as my epitaph. I know I'm screwed. Just a minute ago, I heard my back door slowly creak open. This piece of writing may seem humorous to you, the reader, but in reality, as you read this, I'm under my bed, praying to a God who lost all faith in me years ago to spare me and let me go. But I know that won't happen. My bedroom door just opened, and I could see a big pair of black boots. I bought a mystery box off the dark web. I don't really know what I was thinking. I had been drinking with friends and got home drunk. I decided to open Tor, and one link led to another. I ended up on a marketplace website that was selling all sorts of shady shit. I could buy my own weight in Coca-Cola if I saw fit and had the money. Something caught my interest. A posting said, mystery box, made to order, $250. I read the description, which listed what it could contain. A brand new iPad, that was it. That was the thing that made me send $250 worth of Bitcoin to some random guy in some random place on the internet. I had vague memories of sloppily messaging the seller that I really wanted the iPad. Oh God, I remember sending them an extra $50 to sweeten the deal. What a dickhead. When I woke up, my head hurt. I had a full-blown migraine. It wasn't until I'd had breakfast, showered, and opened up my laptop that I remembered. My heart sank. I didn't have money to waste on shit like that, but I did. I clicked the button to message the seller to tell them I changed my mind, but nothing happened. I refreshed the page, and as you can guess, the listing wasn't found. Now, I didn't think of myself as an idiot. I wouldn't fall for 411 scams. I know no Nigerian prince wants to send me money. But drunken me, he's a bit of an asshole. I checked my Bitcoin account to see that it told me that I was out of untraceable money. I swear I had at least $750 worth in there. If you take the exchange rate of the day, with the way it fluctuates, it may have been only worth $300. I was depressed for the rest of the day, and I promised myself I wouldn't do anything like that again. But then drunken me is a real. You know. Weeks passed, and I completely forgot about it. To be honest, I didn't want to remember how stupid I was. Today, though, I did remember. I walked downstairs to see a large brown box on the kitchen table, addressed to me. My dad must have received it from the mailman when he was getting ready for work. I stared at it, shocked to see that it had actually arrived. I picked it up. The weight was lopsided, but it was heavy. That was a good sign. At least it wasn't filled with packing chips. I pulled off the tape and opened it up to reveal a lot of packing chips. I chuckled to myself before plunging my hand in. I pulled out an anonymous red sweater. I held it to my face. It smelled of perfume. It was used. I was slightly disgusted, but what did I expect from the dark web? I placed it on the table next to me. The next item was a set of keys. I examined them and wondered why, on earth, that was part of this parcel. It was literally like the guy just shoved some random things into a box and sent it off. I was beginning to feel ripped off. I placed my hand in it again and pulled out a small bag with a note attached. I knew what it was before I read it. I was excited. A little thing to make the time pass more calmly, written in Sharpie. It was a good amount of weed. I'd never bought drugs off the internet. I opened the bag to see if it was the real deal, and that strong, skunky smell rose up. I took a deep breath and sighed. I'd say it was $70 worth of giving or taking. I pushed it into my back pocket, worried that my mom could be up at any minute and catch me with it. I was intrigued to see what was remaining. Maybe I'd make my money back yet. The next item was a small wooden box. I opened it to see a few pieces of silver jewelry. I checked each one, having no idea if it was worth anything. There were 2 necklaces and 2 rings. I wondered if these were stolen or bought from a pawn shop. I placed it next to the red top. The next was another baggie, with another note written in Sharpie. You'll need these, trust me. I was a little anxious when I read the note and saw a small box of Xanax inside. What the fuck did I need anxiety medication for? I was not one to dabble in prescription drugs. Weed and a few mushrooms were all I needed. I knew some friends who'd pay good money for that. I had no idea how much they were worth, though. I'll look it up later. I assumed $50, so that was $130 so far. And to be fair, for something off the dark web, if I only lost around half my money, I should count myself lucky. I fished around in the box again and couldn't feel anything else. I picked it up to feel like it was still heavy. I placed it down again and stood up. I reached all the way to the bottom and felt something large and slender. I pulled it out. It was a fucking iPad. Holy shit. Jackpot. It was slightly scratched. But it wasn't a first generation. It was light and thin. It was at least an Air. I was stoked. It was then that my mother popped her head around the corner. "Hey, honey, did you get a package?" "Yeah," I said, suddenly aware that I could smell the weed in my back pocket. "Hey, you found my sweater," she said delightedly. "Where was it?" Was all I mustered. She picked it up and unconsciously picked up the keys too. She walked away. I sighed, worried she'd smelled the drugs. "What's that?" she said, turning. "I'm holding it for a friend," I said without thinking. What she said. Not paying attention. What's my jewelry box doing down here? I stared at my mom, slack-jawed. She picked it up and opened it, studying if anything was missing. "Well, answer me," she demanded. "It was in the package," I said honestly. "Don't bullshit me. Were you going to sell this?" "No, I promise. Just wait until your dad gets home." "Jesus, Darren. I swear, this is not your stuff. It was in my package I bought off the net." "You expect me to believe you bought my exact top and my jewelry box off the internet? Why in God's blazes would you do that?" "It was a mystery box. It could have contained anything. You come up with some shit sometimes. I think it's best if you go to your room." "I'm 17, I said. "When you're under our roof, it's our rule." I picked up the iPad and went upstairs. I lay on my bed and turned the device on. I was surprised to see that it still had power. A few non-standard apps appeared on the desktop as I swiped to unlock them. Nothing of interest, though. I checked the email program to see that it was blank. I was worried it was stolen and knew I couldn't keep it if there was any personal data on there. I checked the Photos app. There were around a dozen photos. I tapped the first. It was a low-light shot of a street. It could have been any. I swiped, and the next was off the front of a house. The light was on in the front room, but in the low light, it overexposed the shot and made it hard to see any detail. The next was on the side of a house. The horizontal white wood siding looked similar to ours. The next was what appeared to be a rear door. Then one of the kitchens. I did a double take. The place looked identical to ours. Then one of the living rooms. The TV was bright, hiding the faces of the people who sat on the couch and chairs. Then one of the stairs. The brown waxed wood on the floor was uncanny, and my heart thumped in my chest. Then one of the landings. This was no coincidence. It was our house. The family portrait that hung on the far side wall, even in the low light, was obviously ours. I panicked and didn't want to swipe again, though I did. My parents' bedroom. My mother was asleep on the bed. The bed covers were pulled taut. In the next few, the covers were pulled back gently. My mother pulled her legs up from the sudden cool air. The cupboard opened, and a black gloved hand reached out and searched. The hand is holding a red sweater. A dark photo with lines of light obscuring the view. Another dark photo. This time the exposure was better, and I see it's from inside the cupboard. My dad was in the room. The next day, my dad got into bed next to my mother. Then, in one of the beds, my parents were sleeping. I swiped again and saw the covers pulled back. Whoever was doing this wanted to be caught, and I was sure of it. After that, in the hallway again, the black-gloved hand holding the jewelry box outstretched. Only one photo remained, and it was above a bed with someone sleeping below. It was me. My blood ran ice cold. I threw the iPad to the floor, hearing it crack against the side of my desk. No, 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 I said to myself. I leaped up and saw the screen stare back at me with a rainbow mosaic of broken LCDs and glass. What was I going to tell my parents? They'd never believe me. I pulled the bag of pills out of my back pocket and read the note again. "You'll need these, trust me." I turned it over to read a date. 07/21/2018. It must have been when the package was sent. I read it again and realized that's tomorrow, Saturday. Fuck. What does it mean? I have to warn my parents. Please, if you don't hear from me, call the authorities. I fear the worst. I searched for my parents' names on the dark web. The videos I found were horrifying. When my friend first introduced me to the dark web, I was amazed at how such an unknown thing could house some of the most illegal things on Earth. Up until today, I had only used it to learn how to code and commit small crimes, but after the horrifying videos I just found, I don't think I'll ever use the dark web again. I first met my best friend, Alex, a little bit after I got into high school. My parents had moved us to a new town, and I had no friends. It was lonely at first, but I got used to it. We moved because they were paranoid after many murders occurred in our town. I thought this was weird, moving across the country over that, but I let it go. The reason Alex and I became friends so quickly was that we both had a shared interest in the internet and everything it had to offer. I was a gaming addict and a Tier 3 Pokemon subscriber, while he was more of a coder and developer. 2 years later, we were still best friends, but now we are much older and smarter. Alex had discovered the dark web, and he was obsessed with it. He pretty much spent every hour of the day on it, searching through anything you could imagine. There was nothing wrong with this, but one search he made was the biggest mistake of his entire life. I remember waking up to dozens of text messages from him one morning. This wasn't normal. Alex wasn't a very social person, and it was very hard to get words out of him. I opened my phone to see what he had messaged me. "Dude, Jack, you have to come over right now. This is important. Jack, please wake up, this is urgent. Where are you?" These were only some of the messages, but the rest were very similar, with them all being urgent and saying that I needed to go to his house immediately. My parents were both at work still, so I went over to Alex's house. When I arrived, there were 4 cop cars parked in front of his house, and there were dozens of people and news vans standing out front. I made my way through the crowd, and Alex's mother told the police to let me inside. I could see tears rolling down her cheeks as she opened the door. "What's going on, Mrs. Gonzalez?" I asked. "Alex is missing," she said this as she started crying. My heart sank. How could this happen? He had just texted me earlier that morning. That was when it hit me. What if he was trying to warn me? What if his text messages were related to his disappearance? Still in shock, I walked up to one of the detectives in the kitchen. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked. "Of course he is. He's going to be just fine. We're going to find him very soon," one of the detectives responded. Something about that response was off. It was like I knew he was wrong. Deep down, I had this slight feeling that I wasn't going to see him ever again. I remembered the text messages, however, and pulled out my phone to show them to the detective. "He texted me this morning. What if this has something to do with him going missing?" I said swiftly. As he began reading them, his expression quickly changed. It was like it got worse. He told me they needed to keep my phone for now to investigate the text messages and said they would give it back to me later. I stayed around the house for a while. Not just because I missed Alex, but because I wanted to comfort his parents. They cared about me a lot, and it hurt to see them like that. His mother couldn't stop crying. Eventually, however, I went into Alex's room to see if I could find anything that might give a clue about why he went missing. I searched through everything, but I found nothing. But then I noticed something. Alex's computer was on, but his monitor was turned off. I looked for the button to turn it on and hit it. As the screen lit up, my heart sank. He was on the dark web. Obviously, this was normal, but for some reason he had dozens of different tabs open. I knew this part wasn't normal, so I closed the door, locked it, and began going through them. At first, it was all pretty usual for him, but then things started to get weird. He had a tab open that was an article about a murder that happened several years ago. The article said that it was a woman who was found dead in her apartment. Her body was mutilated, cut up, and covered in acid. I nearly threw up reading it and seeing the horrifying pictures of the crime scene. Not wanting to see any of it anymore, I switched the tab just to reveal another article about another murder. Confused, I quickly went through the rest of the tabs he had open, and they were all the same thing. They all were about some type of murder or crime. The one that stuck out the most to me, however, was one about a murder that had happened 2 years ago. At first it seemed pretty normal, but as I read further, I realized what it was. It was the murder of our neighbor that prompted us to move away. Confusion quickly swept over me. How did Alex know about this? I never told him about it because, to me, it wasn't that important. I figured it must have just been a strange coincidence, but then I saw the last search he had made on his computer. It was my last name. Horrified and confused, I quickly stumbled out of his room and back to the living room. "Is everything all right?" Alex's mother said, sniffing away her tears. "Yeah, I just need to go home for dinner," I responded. On the way home, so many questions and thoughts filled my mind. Why was he looking up my last name? Did he think that I had something to do with this? That must have been why he was texting me so frantically that morning. If only I could just explain to him that I didn't do anything wrong, but I couldn't. He was still missing, and I had to find out why. When I got home, I raced to my room, slammed the bedroom door shut, and got on my computer. I loaded up my Tor browser and turned my VPN on. I knew what I had to do. I began typing in the letters of my last name, becoming more nervous after every letter. When I finally hit enter, nothing happened. It was just a blank screen. Confused, I refreshed the page, but once again, there was nothing. But why did Alex search for this if there was nothing? I thought to myself, there must be something out there. I was getting ready to close the tab, thinking I had run into a dead end, when suddenly the page started to load. It took several minutes, but finally it loaded to reveal hundreds of videos. Immediately, I knew what they were. They were murderers, but why did they show up when you search my last name? I considered just stopping right there and turning back, knowing the horrifying things I would see if I continued on, but I couldn't. I knew this had to be why Alex went missing, so I clicked on the first video. As it started playing, I saw what looked like a woman strapped to a chair in some sort of basement or something. I quickly recognized who it was. It was our neighbor from 2 years ago. I could tell because she had the same heart-shaped tattoo on her neck. She sat there for a minute, struggling, panicking, and screaming for someone to help. However, suddenly, 2 figures walked into the frame. At first, I couldn't tell who they were, but as they turned around to face the camera, my heart sank. It was my parents. My father was holding a knife, while my mother was holding a small scalpel. They paused for a moment before they started what was the most horrifying 5 minutes of my entire life. I watched as they cut her into pieces and listened as she begged for mercy, screaming the whole time. Blood filled the room as she took her last breath. When the video ended, it quickly went to another, revealing the exact same room and chair I had seen before. I was traumatized by what I had already seen, and I knew I couldn't watch any more of it. My parents were murderers, and I now knew the real reason we moved away 2 years ago. I knew there was something off about that, but I just never could have imagined that this was the horrifying secret that they had been hiding from me. This whole time, I thought Alex was trying to accuse me of being responsible for these murders, but I was so wrong. He was trying to warn me. I scanned through more of the videos, each in the exact same room. I was just about finished and ready to go to the police so that I could tell them about what I had just seen when I noticed something. There was a new video uploaded today on the website. I quickly clicked on it and pressed play to reveal what looked like a man this time, strapped to the chair. He had a sack over his face, and I couldn't tell who it was. Once again, however, I saw my parents walk into the frame. My father walked up to the man and pulled the sack off his head. At first I couldn't tell who it was, but then I realized who I was looking at. It was Alex.